part of what we want to create a context for in the work that we're going to do tonight is that we do what we can to change the world through our businesses. There's a little bit different take than you might hear in the quote-unquote normal entrepreneurship game that gets played in lots of different places on training and stuff like that. But after working with 6,000 entrepreneurs from 42 different countries, in country in 14 different countries, with more than 750 special projects deployed, there's been some interesting stuff that's happened. TechRange has been recognized in the top 3 social impact incubators in the United States. And this year, on book travel alone for what's happening around the world, you're tapping into a network that this year alone is going to be going to Lithuania, Nigeria, Mexico, and that's just the places that I know off the top of what's happening right now. Over the last 16 months, I've been in 12 different countries working with entrepreneurs. I'm an Austinite. I started my first company here in '94, and so I'm real excited to be working with Austinites. But I want to hear from you. I'd like to hear a little bit from you, and we might need a microphone or two. It sounds like, just have it ready so that we can actually hear. You guys came tonight. It's your Tuesday night. What are you here for? Like, what is it that actually had you actually get in the car and decide whatever you're giving up tonight that you're gonna make the investment here with us? Entrepreneurs want to make investments versus have expenses. What's the key difference between an investment and an expense? An expected return, right? So, a couple of you just tell me, this is the return that you're looking to get out of this time tonight. Who would like to share? Yes, sir. Right here. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Stephen Casey. I'm CEO of BMG, and we're an audience data measurement and engagement app for radio stations, TV, and media outlets. And I'm looking more tools to run my company, to pitch my company to other investors, and looking forward to.
How long have you been in business for?
So 2 years. I've been working on this myself.
Got it.
And we're halfway through our seed round. We just completed the halfway mark for what we're trying to raise, so I'm excited about that.
Congratulations.
And I ran a law office. I've got a tech background, but I've never done anything like this before. So.
Got it. Well, so thank you. And so even for those of y'all that have been, there's 2 frameworks we're going to do tonight. Right. If you've been in business for a long time or just a short time,
sure.
Both frameworks will be valuable for that. They'll meet you where you're at. So thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someone else? I know you guys. So let me see if I can ask a couple of people. You know what? Since this is phasing in and out and it's distracting me, I'm going to turn it off. If y'all don't mind.
Great.
Can everyone hear me okay? If I just speak like this? Yes. Okay, I'm going to do that just because it's easier on me. No, I'm going to move around. I got to make sure that they know that there's no place that, in a group this small, it's actually easy to be seen, and we want to make sure that a part of what I'm going to do is be walking around. That's why they have me mic'd up, so that we can actually hear from each one of you. I really want to make sure that together as a group we actually make stuff happen. You were raising your hand. What are you up to?
Hey guys, how's it going? How are you guys? Good. Awesome. My name's Sam. I'm here at AR, real estate application company, and we're just looking to see what the difference is between you guys, WeWorks, and Capital Factor. Why you guys are the best, right?
Got it. So on the space, because you're comparing co-working places, or
co-working spaces.
Got it. Well, we'll speak about that. There's a couple different, nothing against the other models that are out there. There's some very distinct, very strong distinctions about what we'll share tonight. Someone, there's a hand right over here.
My name is Max Jack. I'm with Bio Design Group. My background is healthcare, health economics, from operations into public-private partnerships, and that evolved into green healthcare facility design, build, and but now I've kind of moved into Bio Design Groups and manufacturing of green building and green infrastructure systems.
Got it.
So it's a very different investment and development effort than healthcare, self-funded insurance, and private partnership, which are municipal driven and
things that I'd actually point out, especially for those of us entrepreneurs that are doing something different. So I've started 7 different businesses. I'm the early guy, get it to the first $500,000 or $1 million worth of sales. That's kind of what I've done a number of times before, getting someone else to take over. The thing you have to be really careful about, and one of the 2 frameworks we'll work on tonight, we'll speak to this just a little bit and realize we only have this much time. But the key thing is anytime you jump from one margin business to a different margin business, especially, jumping from one segment to another segment, that's not as big of a deal as margin in business, because the segments, I got to go learn about this segment, I got to go learn about this segment. But the thing that will catch you off guard, at least in the entrepreneurs that I've seen work, are the ones that actually are jumping from a different margin. Early in my career, customer value would be about $500,000 per customer. Now it's like, maybe $5,000 max per customer. So there's something interesting. I'll point that out when we get to the framework about that. I got a lot of guys in here. I want to hear from a woman. Would you like to share?
Hey guys, I'm Bree. I work at an organization called Pervasive Startup. I'm not really here for my personal venture today, but more just to educate myself and meet some people.
Got it. Thank you for being here. So there might be some of you that are actually, in fact, I just met with Tyler. There's a guy named Tyler here somewhere that I just met as well that said something similar. Hey, I just like to learn a couple of things. That's great. What I want you to do is, in the back of everyone's brain, there's an idea that you've thought about, you've been thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Have it be your venture. And whether you like him and already got a bunch of revenue and employees and stuff like that, or at the very beginning, part of the process that we're going through, it'd be really valuable to say, hey, this is what my venture is going to be. Make it up. The best entrepreneurs make it up. There's this whole idea, you might have heard of, fake it till you make it. There's actually a value in that. And what I want you to do is, even if you weren't thinking about launching something, and even though, the head of 3-Day Startup, Cam, would actually say, dude, why are you trying to talk my employees into becoming entrepreneurs? Yes. Make it up. Because inside of everyone, there's a passion that actually wants to turn into a business to go impact the world. Someone else. I would actually like to have one other female, if you don't mind, because I don't know what was in our marketing. We got so many guys, and that's great. But I also want to make sure that there's a space for. Would you like to share? Yeah, please.
My name is Bethany, and I have a company called Wellness. We're an on-site wellness service company. We bring wellness services on site to different clinics around the Austin area. That's my partner Greg here tonight. We just finished our first year of business, so there's a lot of things that we rushed through, and now we're kind of looking back and we need reevaluation and see where we can improve, and just really looking to learn and get more budget, but also network.
Yeah, in a perfect way, it's ready, aim, fire. Sometimes it's fire, ready, aim. In my case, it's always been fire, and eventually I'll be at the target. So yeah, part of what we'll do in the programs I'm going to tell you about later too can be really valuable for helping package something that's already started. In my case, I've worked with my own startups, and then I have 13 examples of multi-billion-dollar companies that I've helped them launch what are called skunk works, new ventures. And the frameworks we'll go through will be applicable all the way through. And sometimes if you're saying, hey, wait, this is great, now we want to scale, what do we have to stop doing? The frameworks we use, both the simple frameworks we're going to go through tonight and some of the other work that we'll do. If you choose one of the other programs that we mentioned later in the process, can be extremely valuable. And when you said about getting connected in the ecosystem, and to the question that was asked a while ago, I'm sorry, I think it was your question about what's the key difference, you'll see quite a stark difference about how we think we should get integrated into a community, which could be really valuable. Cool. I don't know. I want to hear from one other person. There was another couple hands. Yes, sir.
How's everybody doing? Good. My name is Vince. I'm actually an airline pilot by trade. I'm the co-founder of an import-export business in California. in Mexico that specializes in the mezcal market. So our company is actually the first and only to specialize in a very particular a mezcal that comes from a very particular region in Mexico, which is the Michoacan region. So we are the first and only. So the reason why I'm here is because I'm taking the business, my business partner and I are taking a huge right turn in the business, and we're engaging sort of a theory that I call passive versus active engagement. Passive being sending emails, trying to overutilize technology too much, as opposed to like active engagement, which is being right in front of people's faces. Because we're very, very big into like cultivating relationships and body contact. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. Being in people's faces, and just people need to be able to see you and feel you, and so.
But it actually speaks to the Mexican culture, right? I mean, so my first college trip for my first startup 24 years ago, our face was in Mexico. And some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight are concepts I learned because I launched a venture in Mexico. I also launched a venture in Chile. And there's something about Latin American styles of interaction that we can learn about the United States and actually can be really valuable. So, plus, me gusta mezcal, claro que sí.
¿Te gusta mezcal?
I like mezcal. But most importantly, the thing that I'll actually take from what you're saying that's really interesting is a lot of times we've had kind of a death of community in this country. And I'm not going to get on a political soapbox because that's not what we're here for today. But part of the value of that live person-to-person kind of thing is the relationship. And one of the things we focus on strongly, and this is very distinct, especially in high tech, is the relationship. And the only way you get to create the relationship, like you're saying about your marketing process, is to press the flesh.
Yeah.
Right? It's about being connected. There's value that we as, in my case, high-tech entrepreneur, or other type of entrepreneur. In fact, I got a question about some of our other programs recently. Just because the name of the place is called Tech Ranch, we only work with technology ventures. The answer is no. The culinary incubator here in town called the Cook's Nook, they're one of our customers. They actually went through, or one of our entrepreneurs, I should say, they went through one of the programs I'll mention later on tonight after we do the frameworks. Very much so, that community connection is really important.
Yeah.
So, thank you for being here.
Real quick question for you. You got mezcal from Jalisco?
Mezcal from Oaxaca. Although we have entrepreneurs in Morelia.
Okay, that's right.
In fact, I was on the phone twice with entrepreneurs from Morelia this week.
I'm going to have to introduce you to some real mezcal.
Que perfecto. Oh yeah, well, yeah, hey, we're not going to have any conversations about how alcohol and entrepreneurship go together. That's not tonight. But oh well. Yeah, actually, it introduces kind of the concept. Part of one of the things that we've been taught, at least I was taught this, when I read about Steve Jobs and building the Apple, is here's this one man who's like the myth of the one-man entrepreneur who's somehow making stuff happen all alone versus working together. It actually speaks to the concept we were just talking about. Are you choosing to be that one man or woman? Since I have so many men in here, I'll say that. But sometimes, actually, the myth is it's been men. Did you know that more women are starting small businesses right now than men are in this country? It's actually quite interesting. It's 52 to 48%. Women to men. But there's still the thing that actually we can learn from women, that we can learn from our Latin American friends, is doing things together. This is the key concept to the question that was asked a while ago about what's the distinction between Capital Factory, WeWork, and Tech Ranch, and what we're doing here at Impact Hub. It's this concept. We believe that we can build businesses together that change the world. This idea of competition continuously doesn't actually work. Like if I think that you're a competitor, like in the Bay Area, I lived out in the Bay Area twice during my career. Worked for Steve Jobs straight out of college at a place called Next. Love it. Amazing what you can do out there. But the problem is, if you're in social media technology, I'm in water technology, we're at each other's throats. But we're not competitors. You know, for competitors, okay. I got 30 years of Japanese martial arts behind me. I have no problem with the idea of being in an aggressive situation, but it's a false idea. We're going to talk about a different way of building ventures. And then to why is it that Tech Ranch and Impact Hub and Concordia University creating these different partnerships together is we recognize that this new way of building ventures, the way they used to build them years and years and years, centuries ago, this is what's coming back. That's the key idea. So you're in the wrong place if you think that competing against each other's entrepreneurs. I'm not saying competition. Competition is something that has a value to it. But competing as in social media technology, water technology, if you think that's valuable, you're in the wrong place. Period. If you're just in it for the money, there's not really a reason to hang out with the social impact, one of the top 3 incubators in the United States and that's doing all this work in the world. Just in it for the money. And there's nothing wrong with that. I built a trading system for Fidelity Investments. They made a lot of money from that. I made a bunch of money from it. I built the first e-commerce engine behind Dell. First $2 billion of computers sold at Dell.com was built in my living room. Sure. I'll tell you in a few slides about why I actually feel so strongly about this. There's nothing wrong with making money, first off. But if you're just in it for the money, you're in the wrong place. And I just, it's okay if anyone says, dude, that's all I'm here for. Because I want to challenge you to something that goes way beyond that. You're in the right place if you're into working together to go farther, and you have financial and impact goals. The conversation that we want to have with you is actually how can we change the world together and go way farther than any one of us could go alone. So there's really, on the agenda, there's really just 2 things we're going to do. We're going to work on 2 frameworks. We're going to do these quickly. Recognize tonight, for abbreviating our time together, we're going to go through them pretty fast. But I want you to have a taste of what this type of work is all about. I also am going to tell you in a few slides about our campfire. If you've never been to one of our campfire get-togethers, you do that. Campfires are not this program, slightly different. It's a whole different type of interaction. And so, know that there's an invite to that as well. And then, invitation, well, we've got some teamwork we're going to do because I want you to get a sense of what this could be like. And then an invitation to some of the different programs that I've been alluding to. At the end of the day, well, that's what we'll actually focus on. And like I said, the idea that we really want to focus in our conversation is with supportive relationships. There's not always been a lot of conversations about supportive relationships and how relationships can really drive business. Does anyone work with open source software here? There's a handful, maybe about half of you actually worked with open source software. So if there's any problems on hearing me, just let me know and I'll come over that way or speak a little louder. Thank you for giving me the signal. This idea of supportive relationships, part of what we focus on under the Tech Ranch umbrella is we have an organization called Venture Outfitter. And the number one thing we recognize with all these entrepreneurs we're working with is the key relationship to help someone get to the next level is what matters. Now, sometimes it's the key relationship with a mentor or perhaps an investor. And, we recognize that. But a lot of times the one that's missed is this one right here, right? And so we're going to have an experience of that tonight. But I want to make sure that we get a chance to do that because that's how we can impact the world as well as build businesses and do it in a cash-efficient manner. So you might ask, how did I get into this part of my work? Especially if I was building e-commerce engines for Dell and trading systems for Fidelity and all this sort of stuff. Why am I talking about this now? Why am I so focused and animated about this idea about the key relationship or helping entrepreneurs build their key relationships to drive their ventures forward? Built 7 ventures, made a bunch of money, worked for Steve Jobs straight out of school, had a chip on my shoulder. 2003, I had a friend that decided she was going to commit suicide. She committed suicide. She was a mother, a 24-year-old mother of a 1.5 years old. And it ripped my heart out. And I became half sad, half ragefully angry. And I had to go do something. I promptly got myself fired from my last startup. And while I was on the mountain, and I say snowboarding, because I went snowboarding, what do you do when you don't know what else to do? You get the hell out of town. And you know, I left Austin and I went snowboarding. And I say while I was on the mountain, it came to me, I gotta work with entrepreneurs, because I can't get to all the freaking issues in the world that would actually have a 24-year-old mother named Danielle kill herself. And truth be told, it would have been cheaper for me to write her $40,000 checks for 10 years to just say, hey, let me just make your life easier. But so what happened was, through a variety of different things, and there's a little bit longer story that I'm going to tell tonight, but part of what happened is I got introduced to a presidential hopeful, a senator in Chile, and I, you know, essentially went to him and said, hey, I'm God's gift to entrepreneurship. I'm here to help you out with. And what ended up happening was the other thing happened, where I learned what I was blind to. And I learned what American entrepreneurs don't really know about this community thing. And I learned that, yes, we can address it. And after working with all these different entrepreneurs, 6,000 entrepreneurs on 42 countries, you know, in country in 14 countries, then something happened. And, you know, some of the concepts started happening. And that, there's a whole other part of that story about what happened in Chile. If you look at Santiago, the city of Santiago, 14 years ago, it wasn't even on the list of the top 40 most entrepreneurial cities in the world. It's now in the top 20. If you look at Austin, when I got started with entrepreneurship, you know, as an entrepreneur in '94, started my first entrepreneur support group here in Austin in '97. You know, we weren't even on the list. And look at us now. We're now listed as #1 in several lists around the world. So it's kind of interesting to get to have that opportunity. But the thing that's interesting is that what we recognize about entrepreneurship is many of you are working alone, and you think that that's what you should be doing. And the worst part is there's groups of people that are putting us into contests against each other. Yes, there's a prize, and that's kind of cool, but because there's a prize, whether it's, you know, out in Silicon Valley, the prize is, you know, me versus you, just, you know, who's more man, because of whatever, or there's a prize, so maybe, you know, maybe there's a small cash prize, and we're going to tough it out, and because I'm toughing it out, I'm not going to create community with you, because I'm going to cover. And when you ask me how I'm doing, and I ask you how you're doing, oh, we're just killing it. We're just killing it. But the problem with that concept is, truthfully, especially in the Bay Area, it's kind of weird when you walk down the street and, hey, how's it going? We're just killing it. And secretly, you know, especially if you have any empathy, and you can pick up on people, that they're dying inside. You know, whether they're dying on opioids or alcohol or just driving their heads against the wall. So that's the first thing that's wrong. Second thing is, there's a lot of events, but they're not creating relationships. Both tonight, I hope you create relationships. If you come to a campfire, another free event, guarantee you're going to create relationships. And I don't mean incremental relationships where you walk out the door after 2 hours of work and you've actually created a step function difference, not incremental difference. There's no reason to do incremental stuff. You might as well do it step function stuff. And the third thing is competition, not support. If you're in an environment that's all about competing, whether it's about who's looking good or there's nothing wrong with the seed accelerator model. I actually really think that the top tier of the seed accelerator model, the Y Combinators of the world, the Techstars of the world, wow, those are really cool. Mass Challenge as well. Great that we have it in town, just moved into town, right? That's great. And those type of vehicles, they have a place. But day to day, if you're just killing it, and I'm just killing it, and we're hiding everything, I'm actually not going to share anything with you. You're not going to share. You might share, hey, how's it going? And then just try to look good. But that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. So part of what we'll do is we're going to work through these two different frameworks. We're going to hand out some handouts. In fact, my team that's going to be handing this out here, ready? And let's be clear, we're not here to learn about business. We're here to launch ventures, or when I say launch, okay, let's take it from one level to the next level, whatever the next level is. You know, I helped Dell make their stock split twice during the time I worked with them, because I was the guy who brought the company that took them into e-commerce from 0 to 2 billion. So don't underestimate the value of this type of work. It's simple because we only have a little bit of time together, but don't underestimate the value about how you can actually leverage it. And if you don't believe me, after you're engaged in it, challenge me, that's okay. I don't mind the challenge. Not that I'm wanting to create a challenge environment between us. I want to create a supportive environment between us. And I sometimes do come across challenging, but I mean it out of support. Part of this idea comes from days of old. In days of old, I'm a farmer, you're a farmer, I help you build your barn, you help me build my barn. You know, the government's not involved, and you're selling wheat, I'm selling wheat. And somehow, wait, aren't you my competitor? You're selling the exact same product as I am. But the truth is, if you look back in those times, a lot of times, my family would help your family get something out of the field, and your family would have to help me get something out of the field before the rains came. You know, it's totally an example of how we can see something in the past that gives us some insight today. Well, one of the reasons I was bringing up open source a while ago was the same thing is happening in the open source world. In open source, collaborative models are dominating. Look at where Linux is now compared to Microsoft Windows. Does anyone remember the articles just in 2003, 2002, where, you know, Linus and his little board of programmers have no chance up against Microsoft Windows? This same paradigm is now coming into business, and this is the wagon train to get on. There's another story I'll tell you about this wagon train as well. The main thing about it is a lot of times people think that communities were already really strongly formed when they took on things together. In this case, when this group of people would meet, your family would get a Conestoga wagon, my family would get a Conestoga wagon, your family would get a Conestoga wagon, but we meet at the trailhead. And every week, we would go west, but we didn't know each other beforehand. We'd meet there for the first time, and then we'd take an existential risk with each other. Like, risk our lives on some guy, I don't have any idea who this guy really is. I'm gonna get to know him for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then the train's leaving. And, you know, I can't see a TV commercial about what we're really going to go to, but it's because we did this that we actually survived and we thrived. My own family has a story about this. This is my great-great-grandfather, the gentleman right here. Came from Germany, really had a rough situation that they were leaving in the 1800s. Shipwrecked on a sandbar about 3 miles outside of Galveston. Didn't think they were going to make it after 3 days. They actually figured out how to get the boat to, you know, off the sandbar and into the port. The sandbar was like stuck out in the middle of nowhere. So one of the reasons that I've had the benefit of this idea is the story about what happened to help my family get through that really rough time has been handed down, you know, the last 5 generations. So this is actually though what we do to get across the venture valley of death. A lot of times I have people come to me as an investor and they say, hey, will you invest in my company? Will you please invest in my company? And the truth is, he's got a great idea, but his venture is not investable yet. Or you know, you're at the point maybe it's the Series A transition, maybe it's the pre-seed, the seed stage, the Series A, the Series B. There's all different things, but especially at this first part, the thing that's the most valuable thing you can do is to leverage social capital, not financial capital. And social capital is what you have here at the table if you create it with each other. And it doesn't have to be more than 5 minutes of insight. Like 5 minutes of insight in from his background in your business can be worth tens of thousands of dollars. You just have to create the right way. We're going to do one form of that. In the campfires, we do a whole different form. In our venture series, we actually take it to a magnitude of 10 different. And a lot of times, these are the type of things that actually really make a big difference about that. But let me talk to you about the first model. So, I was trying to figure out, a few years ago after the tragedy happened, what is it I need to do to really help a lot of entrepreneurs get to the next level? And I looked at lots of different tools and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff that we go here in what I'm going to call mechanics. I'll tell you about mechanics in a little bit, but there's a lot of stuff that was being talked about, and there's a lot of literature over here, but not all the way across. Most of the stuff that you've been exposed to in the startup world, at least in the technology startup world, for those of you all that have come from the technology startup world, is right up here. Let me go through this model. We're going to do this is the first framework that I want to talk about. This actually pervades most of the work underneath what we're doing. I would go ahead and hand out the sheets just to go ahead and get this one ready if you could. The first thing is motivations. A lot of people don't realize, at least when I was an entrepreneur, I was told, whatever's in your heart, 1994, whatever's in your heart, whatever you care about, whatever you're passionate about, you just got to drop that. The standard MBA knowledge was, hey, just build, the MBA can build a business of whatever he or she wants. In today's day and age, really to make something happen, part of what you have to do is you have to draw on all the different resources that are possible, and that includes what's in your heart. That's what makes you a resilient entrepreneur. The second thing is, we need to have access to know-how. I just talked about mechanics. Some of you have been exposed to lean startups. Some of you have been exposed to, there's actually hundreds of books around mechanics about, revenue minus cost equals profit. That's important. Obviously, if I don't know how to get to profit from revenue minus cost, I've got a real problem. And so that's part of what's there as well. The third is this culture thing, and I'm kind of on my soapbox about this because this idea of farmer helping farmer in an olden time, especially when you're, absolutely getting crushed by not having enough money to get to the next level across the venture valley of death, that's partially where this cultural thing about I want to help you, you want to help me, and we can leverage off of each other comes from. And then finally, structure. Creating bridges to opportunity. And structure can be something as simple as this beautiful building, co-working. I have a structure that I can work with, and we have a table that we can work around. And there's a natural thing that happens because the table is organized this versus each one of you working in a different bedroom at home, right? There's nothing wrong with working in the bedroom at home, but that structure doesn't necessarily create as much opportunity for running into the other person that it might help you solve a problem. So let's talk about motivations just really quick. We'll go through this, and then I'm gonna actually have you fill out some of the questions. But but let me tell you about kind of what's happening. Motivations. A lot of times entrepreneurs don't know what their motivations are. Since I am an investor in a winery and I am a collector of wine, I sometimes use the example of the wine bottle. It's hard to know what's on your label if you're inside the bottle. If you are the wine, it's hard to know how you're taking action. For athletes, it's like athletes have coaches, right? Athletes have coaches so they can get ahead. Or for those of you all that are physicists in the room, Gödel's theorem. You know what Gödel's theorem is. It's hard to figure out something from inside a closed system when it's data from the outside. There's like some really simple ideas about this. The way I like to joke about it is, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the wine bottle. How do you actually get to this point where you tie your passions, your skills, and the market? And this, even if you already have a venture that you launched, that you haven't, you didn't say, hey, I want to start with something I'm passionate about. You just started something because there's opportunity. There's still a way of finding that point right there. And the most resilient entrepreneurs out there are the people that are doing this. The Richard Bransons, Steve Jobs of the world, the Oprahs of the world. They're not doing this other thing, they're doing the thing that they actually care about, right? And so the key thing is about reflections is how can you actually figure out what is that point for you? Because part of what we want to do is we want to create a situation to get you your own personal hero's journey. This is what will make you resilient. A hero's journey example. This says salary. So this is low salary. This is sanity. Lots of us start with the job. I was a stock boy at a drugstore. You know, it helped me put beer on the table, which was great, but absolutely hated that. We go to a career. Now, in my case, I got lucky. Graduated engineering honors from UT, got a job for Steve Jobs' company. That was really cool. But it still is my career. And then I launched my first startup fairly soon after that. E-commerce, internet banking, all these different things, pioneering all those different fields. But it was still very much a career. And then when the tragedy happened earlier that I mentioned, that's when I took it all and I said, screw it. Didn't make sense anymore. And so I launched that and I gave it up all for my mission. Now, my mission is what took me to Chile and working with the first 1,000 entrepreneurs down there and stuff like that. But the key thing is, I think that if you have the right reflective questions and tools, you can get to your calling. Your calling is, why were you put on the planet? Whether you believe in God or whatever, why were you put on the planet? And how do you use the organization that you're starting or about to start to be a fulfillment on that? And then, when you're making money, it's like really cool. Because it's meaningful and it's financially viable, right? There's a place to do that. So the question is, what motivates your venture? What's motivating you to do what you're doing right now? Anyone want to share? Just like short and sweet? Yeah.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. Yeah. Go ahead, just shout it out.
So when I was in Dallas, I was trained to be a commercial broker. And as I was trained to be a commercial broker, I was a pretty hardworking guy. And I was working really hard. And the guy who got me hired actually didn't like that I was working very hard. He really hated it actually. So he ended up complaining, he got me fired, and I was like, and I got to figure out something better. I got to start my own thing, or I'm going to be working for somebody else for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no freedom in that.
I actually have my hopes of becoming immortal, persisting beyond life and whatever I create. So I go out looking for very asymmetrical opportunities that are orders different than anybody else's.
So having a platform going way out in the skinny branches.
Way out in the skinny branches, very unlikely combinations of just actually rather conventional technology systems.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So for me, as I think you mentioned earlier, I see a lot of fragmentation in the business community, and a lot of my friends have been trying to do conscious ventures as well, business-wise, and I don't see the support that people need in the community. And part of that is they don't have all the skills that they need to do all the things they want to do. So they do an event, they don't get a big turnout, it's not that professional, it's not that polished. But I feel like there could be a lot more collaboration in the communities for that.
Yeah, it's partially because we're up against this idea that we're supposed to be islands, right? Exactly.
Well, and I also feel like, you know, these big corporations get all the attention, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs around trying to drive the business world and elevate it, and the more we can support each other, the better.
Perfect. The gentleman over here in the blue shirt raised his hand.
I have been working at Austin Lighthouse on and off for going on 15 years now. I want to eventually get to where I have this idea for a autonomous bicycle. It takes interaction between camera and wheel. With this thing, people with no functional vision, like myself, can function. They can ride from place to place without having to have a ride, without having to depend on somebody to drive.
Independence and freedom.
Yes, sir.
Got it? Yeah, independence, freedom, and spontaneity. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, sir.
after 34 years of working in sales and marketing, which was my second career, my first was in broadcasting, I'm at a point in my life where every mentor and every hero I've ever had in my career is in here, and I want to take the opportunity to pay that all forward. And I really believe that the internet and social media and all those things are the way I'm going to be able to do that in a big way and get outside myself in the Austin market and be able to do that outreach to others and let them avoid a lot of what I had to spend 34 years learning and learning in a lot quicker time.
Yeah, and the world cries out for that right now. Right? The world cries out for that. One other person? Yes.
Sure. So I have sort of had an interesting experience last August. I was in the airline industry for many, many years. The last 3 years, I had transitioned actually into big agriculture, so crop dusting. Last August, I had a conversation with my boss about some maintenance issues we were having. Everybody knows what crop dusting is, right? I'm the guy flying under power lines, 10 feet off the ground. I'd come into the morning briefing, wanted to address an issue that we were having about maintenance, and I was told to go fly the effing shut my mouth and go fly the effing airplane. About 6 hours later, I had a catastrophic systems failure in my airplane and almost ended up a smoking hole in the ground. Didn't crash my aircraft. I'm a damn good pilot. I can say that with the utmost confidence. Landed my aircraft safely in a field somewhere. But what anybody who's ever read the 48 Laws of Power, I'm a big fan of that book. Whatever moral judgment you want to put on it, but I actually ended up getting fired for this incident, and the guy that I was working for had gone through almost every single, had sort of broken almost every single one of the laws in power. I'd actually seen it like right in front of me, and I also realized how financially vulnerable I was. I also realized that while I was making a lot of money, very, very large sums of money, I also wasn't living up to my full potential. So that's my story.
That's quite a statement, especially when there's just like basic integrity issues that are affecting your life. Yeah. Again, we have been influenced by a different name, but yeah, very important. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and through. If I could actually have more of it all the time, part of the thing that I think as a group of entrepreneurs you need to hear. You need to hear stories like that. You need to hear this gentleman over here with the freedom bicycle. You need to hear the guy saying, hey, I'm going to give back. You need to hear the person who's been up against something that's as fundamental as his life is being threatened by the conditions that, for whatever reason, are going on in a company where there's a total fundamental lack of integrity, right? Because it's because we share that sort of stuff. This is actually, out of the 4 quadrants, this is where the biggest charge is. And this is but I think, at least I was taught in the classes I took in the school at UT, hey, that's not that important, really. What we care about, you can build a business, it's not so dependent on you. And there's a way you can build a business that's not dependent on you. Like, as the founder, the spark that you have to offer is this, right? And so, I'm going to go to the next part fairly quickly. I don't really want to, but we should know that from a standpoint is that's the stories that I think it's more important for us, especially as American entrepreneurs. Back to the point that was starting to be made earlier, Mexican entrepreneurs and the Chilean entrepreneurs I worked with, many of the Mexican entrepreneurs I worked with, they didn't have the choice. When President Salinas left in 1994, the presidency in Mexico, and the peso devalued from 3 to 1 to 10 to 1 overnight, most of my buddies down there didn't have a choice. They couldn't go find another job. 5% unemployment in Boston is not available. So it's cool that we have the choice, but except for that type of situation. But from part of what we need to be doing even more is talking about what those fundamental motivations are. It's much more important than I think that we realize, especially at least from my background, what I was told in starting my first business. So part of what we're going to switch is to the mechanics. What is the access to know-how? Now, things are moving so fast. Things are moving so fast right now. The reality of just a few years ago has changed. There was a business here in Austin, I know the founder, that that was making $45 million a year. And then Google changed its algorithms, and it hit the wall. You had access to know-how about what was going to happen. The only way you could find that out is either test it yourself or learn from other people. Now that's a way out there example, but many times we need to kind of learn how to do stuff on the fly. Now, many of you are exposed to lean startup and things like that, but kind of the questions of, I don't know what I don't know. The hardest way to figure this out is to keep on running into the wall. There are great things, and if you haven't heard about lean startup or the business model canvas, there's tools out there to make your life easier. We can talk about those tools. But part of the idea behind the canvas section is to say, what is it that we don't know? What's the opportunity as well? What is it that I'm actually focusing on, and how do I actually go after the opportunity? Many times, especially in the situation I was mentioning earlier, for the gentleman that has the different margin of business, you're used to doing one thing, perhaps through a channel. Now you have to do it through a web browser, or whatever the dynamics might be. A lot of times figuring this out, especially if you had experience as an entrepreneur before. One of the reasons that I think many times entrepreneurs have a real hard time for their second business success is because, or they do exactly the same thing, like the first business looks just like the second business, looks like the third business, and then they do something, and they look successful, and they try something that's outside of this field, and they totally fail. It's because you have to figure that out, and you have to have a way. Now, the simplest way is to have a scientific method of, I make a hypothesis and I run a test. Or in the way that I tend to push people, instead of just saying lean startup, it's like, could you sell it? Did you sell it? That little basic test of testing. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. And we do leverage the lean startup methods in our programs. I've got some questions in the framework to just ask, how are you pursuing this? And we're going to share that back and forth. The third is this, how do we engender this community ethic? In olden times, it was farmer building, farmer helping farmer build a barn. Why did he or she do that? It's because, by us working together, like in my family's history, for 7 years, my grandfather's cotton crop, 30 miles north of here, there was very small-time farmers. 7 years running, his cotton crop was destroyed by hail. And somehow he managed to take care of my grandmother, my mother, my aunts and uncle. And partially it's because the community around Jonah, Texas, you might say, where's Jonah? Jonah's right next to Taylor. Where's Taylor? Taylor's right next to Round Rock. And Round Rock, obviously, right next to Austin. Part of it is, how can we engender that type of ethic with each other to take advantage of these dynamics? We see this happening in open source. And now, how do we apply it to more general business? So there's some real basic things. I'm not going to talk about offer and request. If you come to one of our campfire meetings, you actually see a way of this. But the secret, other than just cultural awareness to this, the secret is how you're engaging with other people in language. And as I was looking at how can we actually build models to help entrepreneurs at scale, it kind of fell back on language, especially as I was trying to do it in Spanish when I was in Chile. And I'm like, hey, I didn't have my network of friends here in Austin to draw upon. I have a pretty big network. At the time, I had a fairly large network. I have a really large one now, but I didn't have that in Chile. I showed up and, I'm here to help, and it was rough. So I had to figure out what are the pieces underneath. The secret is, it comes from language. Having just this offer and request thing. You come to a campfire, you'll get a taste of that. The final thing is structure. We talked about this a little bit earlier. One of the most basic structures is making sure that you're doing stuff like access to a co-working place or a community that you're showing up all the time, or access to the structure. Another type of structure is open source software. That's a set of structures. Or it might be a set of structures of there's a shared, you already paid a lot of money on the contracts that you wrote up with your attorney, and you actually share those with us in our related businesses, something like that. Very simple idea. What we're going to do is, in order to suss out some of those things, we're going to take this worksheet. Like I said, given the short amount of time, I'm going to give you an unrealistically short amount of time to go through this. The best part about it is, you won't think about it too much because I'm giving you a very short amount of time. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to fill this first sheet out.
20 seconds. Go ahead and finish up whatever you're writing. Okay, bring that to a close. Alright, so the value of this is, you might say, what's the value of a set of questions like this? In open source software, there's a concept that says all bugs are shallow based on the number of eyes on them, right? How is it that Linux is just grown and grown and grown so fast that it now utterly dominates the server market and the market? To me, you don't have Linux in your back pocket. How is it possible that Windows Phone is now totally irrelevant? It's because there's all these different eyes that bring on that. There's simple questions, but some of you actually have expertise in one of the areas, and some of you have weakness in that same area. You get what I mean? I'd love to hear from one of the questions. I'm going to go through the four different parts. If I have anyone that says, hey, I just totally got this one nailed, I'd love to hear from someone that says, hey, on the first one. I know they're really simple questions, but realize your strength is probably someone else's weakness. It's always, my strength is someone else's weakness. Someone else's weakness happens to be in my strength area. Who's really strong on the first question? Who would like to share real quick? Paul.
Over the last 2 weeks, we just we're in stealth startup mode. We're changing or disrupting the distribution of video games digitally. Right now, one company dominates, it's Steam. Apple and Microsoft do it on mobile. And Google and Apple do it on mobile. We're doing it across all platforms, and instead of taking 30% from the developer, the independent developer, or the big developer, we're taking 10%, and we're using blockchain technology, and we're doing it with cryptocurrency and an ICO.
So, you want to truly revolutionize the industry, is what you're trying to do, and you have like the technology insight that you think can deliver.
Yeah, really the passion is to help.
Yeah, help the game developer.
Absolutely.
Got it. More margin in his or her pocket.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Motivations. I've had 4 major reconstructive knee surgeries. I'm supposed to have 2 knee replacements already. So pain. My ex-wife had lower back pain. She went through multiple rounds of burning nerves and pain management, and she became addicted to opioids. So pain and addiction, access to healthcare, things that will change the way that people have access to things that can help them that are not prescribed by big pharma. We do acupuncture, massage therapy, and support the healthcare industry for those individuals that are either addicts or allergic to certain medications. My passion has really always been to help others. I have a long career in higher education because of that. But really it's to help others lead a happy, successful life, pain-free and addiction-free.
Especially it's like in the opioids and
and she went from a very successful businesswoman, a huge HR firm, to the DEA raiding my house, kicking in the door. They busted down the door with one of those, rams and drugged her out of the house. She had written a prescription from Kelsey Siebel, where she stole a prescription pad at CVS, and they busted her big time. It was crazy, and she went from top to bottom really fast.
So
spent everything I had to keep her out of prison.
Serving a need that comes out of personal pain.
Correct.
That's a very awesome thing. I have scar tissue that out at the same time. So I appreciate that. Has anyone done this question just out of blame? Doesn't know. Sometimes for those of us who
I'm a student, so my passion is really to kind of translate the work experience directly into the classroom. lot of students who are at the end of the process, they have a lot of like theory abilities. They don't really have practical abilities. So I think the company for the awesome places is a marketing company, and what we're doing is really getting students to become fashion consultants while they're still in class. So we try to do some projects of small companies. In that sense, we also have small companies with like manpower where we can really pay that much money to work for the employees.
Got it. Well, that's very practical, certainly. That's perfect. Let me just ask real quick, too. Thank you for sharing. Let me ask real quick, is there anyone that doesn't know in this question? Like, when you have this much muscle in the room, you might not have an idea about what to, like, this is actually a great way to process it. We might actually have, since we have maybe a little bit older crowd tonight, we've all figured it out at some level. Anyone want to say, hey, I'm still trying to figure out what this might mean? All right, you guys. Perfect. Okay, well, let's go to the next one. What about mechanics? When it comes to mechanics. Who doesn't have a $10 million business in the house? All right. So what's stopping you? All right, right here, Willie.
I think very low level of social capital, because I just moved to Austin like 3 years ago, and I realized every time moving from one country to other, you kind of like you're starting from the scratch. So back in the day, I used to live in Russia, and I've been there at the moment where my life was, I would say, like pretty stable, and I grew up in music industry at a certain level where I used to be VJ, worked for MTV and all that things. So in one moment, I feel like great living there. Then we moved to Ukraine, so we start from zero again. And then I can go on and on, like 3 or 4 countries that we moved.
Part of it, so he's being really humble. He's actually been a rock star in Russia, for those who don't know. And the only thing I can actually challenge you on really is social capital sitting right next to you.
Yeah, so I'm learning.
But realize, all of us, I don't know this firsthand in Russia, because I've never lived in Russia. I did live in Chile, I did live in Mexico. We're all socialized here and there, not to ask, not to just make the basic ask. At least I was socialized that way.
Well, that's the way, because I grew up in Soviet Union, and that's the way I've been teach, not be open to communication and be always very careful because of that spy idea that everybody's some kind of like danger for you. So I realized even moved to Dominican Republic, what is a pretty different country. It's Latin America, it's Caribbean, where everybody's smiling, they all dancing, they all talking with each other. I was just look weird. So, and finally moving here, I realized, okay, in Dominican Republic, I kind of like do something like first steps, but now it's from zero. But it's interesting. So I'm glad that I'm trying to be connected and just being here, and it's my second.
Even by sharing, I mean, part of the thing, and it's real hard to point this out unless you actually actively know it. So while you're even talking, there's a couple of people that are actually saying, hey, I should talk to him. If you don't recognize that, now everyone might not say, hey, I need to meet a rock star from Russia that happens to speak both Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, and English, who has access to all those different markets. You might not realize that because you might not be thinking that way, that there's a business opportunity there. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm doing business around the world is because I recognize the value of making these kind of connections. Someone else on the same question? Thank you, Phil. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm David. I'm the CFO. And about a month ago, I was referred to this book I wrote called Purple Cow. The premise behind the book is what makes you remarkable. And so I think what's kind of friend of me kind of getting to the next level was really figuring out from I delivered financial CFO services. Some guys are really good at like creating valuations for companies. Some guys are really good at fundraising. So I'm trying to figure out what's that one thing, as a CFO that makes me maybe remarkable and can really help other companies. So just I feel like that's that one thing that's, I kind of know who my clients or my target market is, but how do I kind of get it up to that next level? Got it. Thank you.
On the cultural one, you want to have one that they'd like to share on that? Yes, please.
Just finding people who can speak the finance of startups in the pitch area, because my model's always been go get a formal education on a topic and then do it. But that's completely inverted now that I'm doing this on the side. I don't have that time to take off to do that. And so learning on the fly is just it's a high learning curve, very steep.
Yeah, totally. And it doesn't make sense anymore, right? I mean, in this room of this big, actually, David, who just spoke a while ago, as an example, is one of the finance guys you should talk to. How do you package up your startup to get it funded? I'm another one, right? In our last Venture Forth cohort that pitched in December, 4 of the companies, it was a small group, but 4 of the companies got funding. Now, some of it was strategic funding and grants and stuff like that. Worst part about it is the people who actually think, oh wait, the only way for me to get funding is to go talk to a financial investor. And that's why they sort of bounce off the financial investor, because they're not fundable by that vehicle just yet. You want to learn that the easy way. And what is knowledge? It's called scar tissue, right? What is wisdom? Learning from other people's scar tissue. You find a guy like me who's got scar tissue to donate. Structure? Anyone? I mean, part of what I want you to tease out too is you should be listening for who are the people that right after when we close the official part you're going to go talk to briefly and say, hey, could you tell me more about that one thing? And if you're not seeing that, even though the questions are really simple, we're all blind. That's what the whole wine bottle thing is. I want you to see that with just the simple ideas. Please.
My name is Blaise Hallahan, and I was part of Venture Forth Cohort 11. What are you up to now?
40.
Yeah. And
welcome. It's good to see you.
5 years ago, I started a food business. I'm a minority shareholder in that with my partner. And it's a wholesale food business. 5 years ago, there were 2 other companies that started at the same time that we did. One of them is called Chameleon Coffee, and the other one is Daily Greens. Both of them recently were funded for multi-millions of dollars, about $2 million. Last year, we grossed $20,000. There's a couple of reasons for that, but the main thing that we need right now, and I don't even know how to begin to do it, is to find someone that can help us dramatically expand. We've got a good product in 13 local stores. We've got the whole infrastructure, corporate structure, everything else. Even some funding we can put into it. But what we need is someone to help us dramatically expand in return for an equity share, someone that knows how to do that.
How to scale it. Well, and there's a couple of people that I already know that are here. Like, again, this guy right over here, part of what he does. The network the mentor network we have now is quite different than what we had back in Venture Forth 11. So, we'd love to have you back in VF as well, but that's a different conversation that we'll have directly. But yeah, finding that same type of stuff, and it's as simple as someone already in the room knows exactly who you should talk to, right? We have more, when we do one of our campfires, for those of y'all that haven't ever been to one of the campfires, you can actually find something like that fairly quickly. As part of our Venture Forth program, I'll talk about it in a slide or two. We actively engage with you to help you get to that, to find that right group, because creating that key relationship is an important thing. One other person that wants to share about the systems? Yes, sir.
Would you like to share on the last one? What systems am I putting in place? What am I trying to do? I'm actually trying to just go ahead and add networks. I'm still at the place where I have a couple of ideas that I'm trying to go and look out as to which one is more feasible, more viable to go out and do. What I'm doing is I'm going out and networking. I'm going attending different conferences. I'm more interested in robotics than actually. So I'm going to different conferences. At the same time, I'm going to events like these, and then I met a couple of people. One of the guys I met at an event like this, he had started an app company like Squid. He's been doing it for 3 years, and we just started to get talking, and I just started consulting with him just for free, for him it was I was giving him an outside agenda on what he was doing, and for me I was learning as to what he did in the last 3 years and how he got his company started. So the system I'm trying to put in place for myself right now is just to build a good network where I can go and rely on some people so that they answer my call when I'm in trouble and I need somebody to speak to. And actually it got kicked off at your last campfire down south.
I remember.
That's when I kicked off and I really got into networking and working on it. So I have experience not just by this, my family has always had a business in the fishing business, and then my dad went off and did a software development business for the last 30 years, data processing in India, and that's how I have all of these ideas and things that I really can work with people, but I've never tried to do anything on my own until now, because I've been in the whole formal education and then working for a big company.
What's your name?
Pedro Sundarwala.
Yeah, so he actually points out this important part. I do remember when I challenged him at the campfire, and after this, if anyone asked, hey, what's this campfire thing? I'd love to get you to share a little bit more about it. Just for the sake of time right now, I'll say thank you for thinking of that. But he makes a good point in that this idea of building up. One of the reasons I've had to take so many risks across my career, and outside the country as well, right? Massive technology risks. Nobody believed me in 1995 when e-commerce was going to be a thing. No one believed me in 2005 that co-working was going to be a thing. I opened up Boston's first co-working place, by the way. And the way I was able to take those risks as an entrepreneur is I had a ready-made network. It's not that I came from a rich family. I actually came from, I was like lower middle class. And I had to kind of figure it all out myself and all that. I don't come from a business family. I didn't have the background of a dad who did that sort of stuff. But building a network, like you're pointing out, is actually really valuable, which is not taught that as much as actively as you might see in other places. So that's good. That's a good structure. There's lots of different structures from the standpoint of time. That's where my team always is telling me, hey, make sure that we don't go. We'll get a chance to dig in a little bit more about that. But the thing I want you to see, and I think, can you see it about how there are other people here that have answers for you? It's just about now, part of what you want to do is have an active way to mine the network, active engagement, versus just having a bunch of people. Everyone here has a LinkedIn account, I'm sure. And you have a bunch of people that are on it. Are you actively engaging with it? How do you actively engage with it? How can you actually go farther than that? If you tie into our mentor network as an example, how can you put that to use so you're not just getting nice advice, but you're actually getting business building insight, right? That's kind of the key things. I'm going to switch to the next framework. We have another framework that we're going to go through. It's very simple, but probably if we were to really dig in on this, you're strong in one area. You're strong in one area out of the four. Now, it's really simple. Earlier when I was talking about the passion, several of you actually said, hey, this is what I actually am doing. This is why I'm doing it. I know exactly. I've had 4 knees replaced, and I've also had this thing happen with my ex-wife, and I'm taking on this issue. Because that sort of stuff shouldn't happen, right? Pain shouldn't happen, and addiction shouldn't happen. Got it. So that's the entrepreneurial insight. The resilient entrepreneur knows that type of insight. The second is the product. Some of you really know a lot about your product. Paul is talking about how we're going to use blockchain to support the gamers, to drive down the prices so that we can actually get more margin
in the game developer's hands. Makes a lot of sense. And, probably a really detailed understanding of that. Some of you actually have been looking at the corporation or whatever the startup is. What's the engine? What are the processes? He alluded to it a little bit earlier about that, about what are the processes that we actually use. And the fourth area is some of you are masters of your marketplace. A marketplace being whatever, wherever you're selling to. You've been in it for a long time. Like whether it's housing or technology of some type or something else. What I want you to do is, using this second worksheet, we'll go through and answer some questions around that. And then I want to, this time, be prepared to say, hey, these are the things that I have holes in. Everyone here is going to have a strength area, it's going to have a weakness area. I'm going to challenge you to actually share in your weakness area on this time around. So make sure that you be forthright about what this might be. All right, let's go ahead and, just for the sake of getting you all out of here on time, or at least to try to keep that commitment, let's go ahead and share a little bit. What I'd like to hear this time around is the last time around we showed all of our strength areas. And I know that this group of people doesn't know each other really well, but we're Austinites, right? One of the great things about Austinites in our hippie music cultural past is we kind of share from the heart. What I'd like to hear is there one of the four areas in this that you feel like you actually would like to tap into the muscle in the room and say, hey, I kind of need some help on this? Yes, sir.
So I'm trying to develop a solution for students or eventually anyone who's struggling to figure out what they want to do in a career. And it's a problem that I really identified with when I was in school. I went to UT about 6 months ago and quickly realized I was not in the right field and set out to try and figure out how to help people identify what might be the right field, what type of jobs they should be doing in that field. But I'm a little weak on actual domain expertise in building these solutions. So I'm trying to find partners and people who understand the psychology behind how we actually make these decisions, and also on the technology side, how we can build a process for people to actually engage with through their college career to figure that out.
Okay, show of hands. Who actually might have insight into this area? I have a couple of different people here that have insight. So could you actually say, just to give people the general public a taste, and right after your job we talk in detail, after we finish up, like maybe like 10 words, so we can get a kind of a taste of each one of the three?
Well, I've seen people doing this on a very small, like localized scale, and don't have the necessarily degree that they're doing the same kind of thing. But for people that are people that are 10 to 15 years, and so I can point you in that direction. Some of those Thank you.
There's a hand over here somewhere. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually see some
Speak a little louder, just so everyone in the room can hear.
I actually see a little bit of application over here in the field of AI and data analytics to basically take information from people who are somewhere midway in their careers to see what's part of their careers, or what wrong choices did they make in their careers to get here. And I mean, I'm not an AI expert. I would love to be someday, but I'm not. And see where you can go from there, because when we were in school, we used to have these yes or no questions or these standardized tests which tell you, hey, you should become a doctor, or you should become an engineer, or you should become a welder. But most of the people today that I know, some of them who tried to do that realized that that was the worst mistake they made, because they were all based on the books that they actually studied. Sure. So yes, a good student is going to be great in science and math. At all times, a good math student.
But that gives us kind of a sense, just for right now, so there's a follow-up point there. It was one of the persons that raised their hand in the last table. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a technology background, dabble in everything front end, back end, and I have a large network of technology people who are always looking for side hustles.
Got it. And then, like, there's lots of other places. I'm on the board of your6.com, which is, there's a vet who has essentially come up with a framework of how you take vets, or actually soldiers, and then translate their skill sets into the quote-unquote real world, of the business world. Because, because you know how to do this, means you probably have insight about how to do that. But if I'm looking at me as a business person, I'm looking at the resume, I don't have any idea what it means to be field artillery and why that would actually help me work out logistics at Dell or something like that. I know that they have some really innovative ways as well. So there's like one of the other places to plug into would be other companies like that would say, hey, we've licensed the following thing for you for the different applications. Part of what I'm just trying to show the group is that type of transaction. I don't have any idea about this, but I know that I can exercise my network very quickly to solve a product problem. That's partially what my real career was all about. About getting people to, I didn't know anything about e-commerce. I didn't know anything about computers when I walked into Dell as a consultant. Figured it out really quick, right? So that is how you do it. You just got to be open, which thank you for sharing, because that shows that you are. Who else has in the 4 areas? Doesn't have to be in the product area. Yes, sir.
Mine's in the first one, entrepreneur. I know what I know very well. I'm very good at it. But I've always done it with an instructor, somebody else's company. With a few exceptions where I've been asked to come back and consult with former employers. My problem is I don't know how to brand and promote myself as the subject matter expert that I am for my own business. And that's where I'm really struggling. I'm really having a lot of trouble. I'm talking to a lot of people. I'm networking with a lot of people. Talking to other consultants, those types of things. But I don't really have a roadmap that I know how to follow to get myself where I want to go, because ultimately I want to be an online presence. But right now I just want to learn how to get better at it with the audience that I have right here in Austin.
Yeah, so there's a good example there. So National Instruments, somebody give an example that would reflect off that. National Instruments. Everyone know that company here in town?
Oh, yeah.
That's an engineering company, right? Yeah. It's an engineering company.
Oh, really?
Yeah. $3 are spent on sales and marketing for every $1 on a product. It's the same kind of problem you have. You actually have a lot of product knowledge, or you have a lot of domain expertise. Or the way we say it in Venture Forth is talent needs an agent. Talent needs an agent. And how is it we can acquire an agent? This might be a website, it might be a web presence, it might be channel, it might be something else. How can we actually get there really quick? Right? And so that we're not screwing around with it for a year and a half. Maybe we get the first few real movements in the next 3 months or less. And we have a bunch of examples of Venture Forth grads that have done that, where there are product people that got connected into the right group. There's a lot of examples about that. Do I have one of the other domains on this sheet that someone else would like to just say, hey, yes, ma'am, please.
So my name is Mary, and I'm in the process of developing an app for this publication.
Sorry, what?
There's someone out over here. That's why I was trying to give you some space.
Yeah, it's basically a cross-media collaboration network for different types of creatives. So, for example, I'm a musician. On this app, you can go and find a videographer, photographer, and it's all local. So, yeah, I obviously am really connected to the customer. I feel like I definitely understand what the needs are, but I don't have enough business. So, in launching the beta, I'm a little bit nervous about like actually turning it into something profitable.
Got it. So you hear, like in the framework, just to translate that a little bit, she's got her products. She totally knows the marketplace. Now it's about building the sales engine, or in this framework, it's the startup. You know, so that the sales engine exists to really take that to leverage. Who's got, again, like you did a while ago, who's got a little bit of insight that they'd like to share, that comes from that area? Go ahead, Paul.
You said it's an app, right? Yeah, so my most recent app has been downloaded over 5 million, paid app has been downloaded over 5 million times. Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Steam, I don't know even, I mean, there's like 5 other platforms. So what exactly do you need help with?
I mean, I'm just a little bit like nervous about right now it's premium, so I'm on the premium version about 6 months right now, she's launching into the beta. And I guess getting us started as a business and needs investment here shortly. I'm kind of just like walking into it, you know, like not really, I have a product, we'll see on the market fast, but I'm not sure how to manage it.
Wait, and the other, so there's an example of Paul's pointing out too.
You already put in the middle process, so that's my question is like, what do I do next after I launch?
The other way to look, so look to Paul for the marketing expertise, the obviously, like wheels and owns. The other thing to look at in an example like that is, especially with South by coming, is focusing only on strategic investors, not financial investors, but strategic investors. What's a strategic investor? Someone in the music industry wants that app to exist. And it's not going to be necessarily one of the music companies. It'll be something more like, you know, how does Samsung go up against Apple? Well, Samsung wants to have a music app that all the musicians use, and so in Samsung, if you drop several $1 million, you know, a few miles this way, how could you actually create the right conversation so that you switch gears fairly quickly? I mean, that's it. I don't know about the consumer space, I don't know the music space, but I don't know how that pattern works.
I can talk to you after as well.
Yeah, and then part of what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of time, although I have to be cognizant of our timing for when they shut the lights and kick us out and stuff like that. You all have a chance to talk. It's part of the value of something like this. Was there anyone else that had an example in this case for her? Yeah, you do? Okay, well, then if you want to share, please.
So for me, I've owned a couple of small businesses, pretty small. But I'm getting ready to launch a business that's going to be social media. It's a new world for me. Tech's a new world for me. I've owned businesses that are local businesses. This is going to be national. So I just feel like a fish out of water, kind of dealing with these things. I've got a programmer, I've got a marketing guy, I've got a score business consultant, I've got probably a chief and editor that wants to come on board to oversee content. So I've made some progress, but I still feel like a beginner fish out of the water and doing something that's going to be national-based and tech-based.
Brian, actually, before I say something, someone else have insight from him?
I do kind of. I'm not a big marketing guy. I just, as far as like my knowledge base, but I just recently discovered this term. People are going to look at me like I'm crazy. Growth hacking. And it really opened my eyes talking to other quote-unquote marketing people. It's really been able to, what am I trying to say here? I've been able to sort of embrace the concept of growth hacking and look at like quote-unquote marketing people as, with sort of a suspicious eye. So I don't know if that helps at all. No offense to the marketing people, I'm just saying, like, for example, we're in the middle of a product launch right now. I got quoted something like $10,000 by a quote-unquote marketing guy to do a 2-hour event. And I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous based on like the little bit I knew about like growth hacking. But also like one of the things I learned about growth hacking, and I'm sure you could attest to this, is that some of the most actually all the most successful companies like today, from like the Facebooks and Googles to whoever, have been one of their trademarks has been they've been started with almost zero marketing dollars. So, did you get that? Okay.
Right, and there's a lot of guerrilla marketing techniques. In fact, there's a book called Guerrilla Marketing that in the case, all the startups that I did, that's what I had to do. Now I personally should learn more about marketing just to round myself out a little bit. But I'll tell you that's one of the interesting things is, getting things started in maybe a guerrilla standpoint. Don't go get at the trade show, don't go get the booth, figure out which intersection at the trade show you should stand in. I did that. Came back with, and there's actually a specific example. I went to the trade show, we spent $400, I came back with 40 leads. The VP of sales went to the Vegas trade show, bought a booth, $10,000, came back with 1 lead. Yeah, 40 leads for $400, and each one of my leads was as valuable as this one. So that in the trenches kind of stuff is a really valuable thing, and that's where we can learn it from each other, because someone else over here is already experimenting in a parallel track to whatever you're up to. Let's do this. What I want to do is, that's the sort of insight that happens back and forth across this sort of stuff. The main thing that I was actually trying to point out with our two models is, if you have this language about, this domain, this is this domain, this is this domain, you can actually then have the value of a big group of people goes way up. Like, because we have just the start of a language about what we're talking about, the different domains, the interactions with each other go way up. Now, we're doing this at a very naive level right now, just like it's just a few minutes of time together. But because of that, then when you're doing the networking, you're talking about earlier, you know exactly what you're looking for. I know I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, I do this, 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 and this, right? And if that's not your area of expertise, like he was saying, well, you have to build a vocabulary before you even have the ability to ask the question. Otherwise, you get the guy who says, $10,000 for 2 hours. Yeah, and you don't have any way of validating it.
Absolutely insane.
And that sounds insane. But, if I don't know, it's like, or if I don't have someone to turn to, that can actually be really problematic. That's part of what we're here to talk about. So hopefully the two frameworks have actually been valuable for you to go through. There's kind of this fork in the road. I hope that tonight this has been valuable for you on the time that we actually spent with each other. Some really simple frameworks to say, hey, this is kind of the what's possible. And hopefully, like, right after we officially close, there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to run and talk to different individuals. That's always a very valuable thing. But part of to speak to the question I believe you asked at the very beginning is, what's the difference? What's the difference? You can go to a bunch of events. Part of what I'm actually suggesting is you build a community, not just a network, and you leverage the hell out of it. What we started doing, scratching very lightly against the surface, what we started doing in this conversation today, we started building a community. Network's nice, you got to exercise it, and at some point it becomes a community, and then that's actually what's really valuable. That's what can drive a venture. That's what is driving the ventures that we've been involved in around the world. We have a program called Venture Forth. It's what I've been alluding to. The program is what we're talking about on steroids. You're going to have 3 different opportunities if you'd like to get involved in any of the other Tech Ranch programs and stuff like that. This is the program that actually I would love to have you target. We call this program the launch program, whether you're actually at the very beginning of the business, you're actually thinking about it. You do need to get it to the point that you actually made the commitment, like on the idea. So earlier you said, hey, I've got this idea, this idea, this idea. That's not for this program. There's no problem with that. But that's not this program. We do have another program for, looking at this program, how do I actually sort them all out? And so I'll point that out. This program is about learning from experiencing entrepreneurs, driving their venture faster. It's not just about lean startup. I love Ash Moria. He's an Austinite, if you did not know that. Early on in the whole process of what he did with lean startup, he let me have a little bit of an impact on the way he was looking at ventures. And you should totally buy his books and leverage his seminars as well. I still think that it's only 1/4 of the problem that the entrepreneur is up against, like I was talking about a bunch of slides earlier. And the key thing is, he or she who makes the fewer mistakes has the best chance of not going insane. Like I said earlier, the most important concept is, knowledge is running into the wall a bunch of times and knowing that there's a wall that's either going to fall down or not, or knowing what it took to make the wall fall down. Wisdom is you find someone else to get scar tissue from who's not going to do this. What pisses me off is when successful entrepreneurs do this. Here, kiss my ring, and then I'll impart my knowledge on you. That's bullshit. And one of the things I hope you do not allow, whether or not you take one of my programs or not, don't allow that to creep any more into our culture in Austin. Because that's a shitty way to learn. Sorry, I shouldn't say curse words. But here, kiss my ring, and let me tell you how brilliant I am. That's not a way to learn. That's like this thing. Oh, how's it going? We're just killing it. We're just killing it. Oh, how's the home life? Well, whatever. The instructors that are part of this program, they're all battle-scarred entrepreneurs. They're all humble entrepreneurs. One of them manages a $500,000 company downtown. One of them is one of the most brilliant female entrepreneurs I've ever met, and I consider her one of my personal advisors, Holly Tukowski. She's running BuildFacts. She's been growing that at 60% growth for years, and she's actually only told about the last 3 years that she's done that. She's raised double-digit millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars of venture capital. She leads 20 of her programs. One of the guys is a guy by the name of Brian Massey, who's the conversion scientist. He's the person that actually helps you decide, make the point. Like as you're looking on, you got a bunch of web traffic, but it's not converting. And why is that? Well, he helps companies go from like 2% to 3% and ends up producing, another $1 million of revenue off of no change other than, the button should be this or this. He's in Napa, California right now, getting paid around $20,000 for 1 or 2 hour speech, and he spends 4 hours with you one night. And the people that are part of the instructor body are all people who really want to see you be successful. And I promise, there's no one that's going to do this, because I think that's bullshit. That's not a way for you to learn about entrepreneurship. And that's certainly not an Austin way of doing things. The entrepreneurial cultures that are like this around the world are the ones that are, there is a reason we have a bunch of Silicon Valley refugees moving to Austin. If you haven't seen, there's been like 3 articles in the last, month and a half that are significant individuals that are leaving Silicon Valley. And why is that? We have to make sure that they don't screw up what we have, because what we have is a very beautiful thing. You should learn from people who really care about what you do as an entrepreneur and your success. And that's how we build a community, by the way. So this program is $1,100. It goes over 8 weeks. It has a mentor network that's part of that. We have a special offer I'll tell you about in a slide or two. I don't remember how many slides it is, but in a slide or two we have a special offer for you all to take advantage of if you want to. This is the program, like I said. If you're still thinking about what you're doing, it's not the right program. But if you've launched the venture, we've had people up to $1 million worth of revenue in it. In fact, the woman that had the $1 million revenue business got it to $2 million. So it will meet a growth person at like a growth venture where they're at, and it'll meet the person who just launched at where they're at as well. And so that's this program. Maria in the pink in the back, and Tanya over here behind the speaker. And I think I have a couple other people who are actually available, so if you want to inquire more, ask me more about it, I'll be around for a little bit. But this is the program that we're really kind of targeting with some of the people from Venture Prep. Now obviously, if you get started now, like Engage Coaching now, our next program actually starts on February 20th, but obviously we don't want you to wait, and there's, entrepreneurs don't typically wait. So we're having special coaching processes that I will personally be driving. The instructors, there's a whole body of instructors, but for the coaching for this specific Venture Forth, I'll be driving that. Obviously, it's not going to be a group this size. We didn't get to really dig in with anyone because there's so many people in the room. But part of the coaching that happens even before the first day, if you sign up early, you get access to this, will be driven by me. We do have some other info sessions as well that you can ask questions, but typically the coaching is where we're going to really dig in to a much deeper type of process. There's a few quotes. Hop Zero is on a rocket ride. They were just in Venture Forth 39, and two brilliant product guys in the information security space. Part of what they said is the program forces you to improve all aspects of your business, not just the part you find most interesting. If you're the engineer, a lot of ventures die because of engineering-itis. Engineering-itis is like keep on working on the product. What about sales? Well, they're now on a rocket ride. Annie had this to say. She was in Venture Forth 37, so we're on Venture Forth cohort number 40. If you choose to be involved on February 20th. Not only do I understand my company's mission better because of Venture Forth, I understand myself. A lot of entrepreneurs break themselves because they didn't figure themselves out. And that's why we see so many issues. You should actually, many of you have already started the process of figuring out who you are as an entrepreneur. We'll help you take that up a notch. I've gotten further in the past 8 weeks than I have in the past 2 years. Richard is right over here. If you want to ask this guy, do you want to say anything about this quote?
It goes back to the first quote, where you're basically trained to look into the areas that you've been ignoring and to ignore, your, let's say, your favorite part, and to go and address all those things you've been putting off. And then you get challenged by the group to stick to your promises, and that's how you make more progress in 8 weeks than you have in the last 2 years.
Got it, thank you. It's that sort of stuff. The idea here that I want you to see is, don't just get into a class where you're this individual who's watching the instructor at the front. Get into something where there are other people who've got your back. And sometimes what having your back looks like is they run after you with spears so that you get the other work done. And I'm glad you did it, because you should ask him about his venture just for the sake of time. He's got a lot of really world impact type of stuff that he's doing with kids. So that's why I was glad to chase after him with a spear to make sure that he got it done. And that's what happened. Next one. Sasha said this: Venture Forth can give you a solid insights and direction regardless of where you're at in your startup journey. This guy has more than enough money. I was like, Sasha, why are you in my class? You've already made a big, multiple millions of dollars. Why are you in my class? Maybe I should learn from you. And, this is the result that happened there. So, back to this. Our guarantee on this is if you do the work, and you don't think you're getting your value by the fourth class or before, if you're doing the work and you're like, hey, I didn't get the value out of it, all right, refund your money. Your complete money back guarantee. Now the challenge is we're going to have an integrity conversation of actually if you're doing the work. There is no space for spectators in this program. There is no space for spectators in this program. Yes, sir. Yeah, he was in the program.
Kevin didn't know I was going to be here tonight, but I started out at ground zero and I came to a class like this. And I'm with a company called All Boat, and at the time, we wanted to launch a micro-housing container based company. We have pivoted since then, but I can tell you, you really form a bond with your cohorts. And the reason I'm here is I want to work in a couple new concepts and ideas I have into the business. We're now in this kind of the service side of it, but still in the micro housing. And Kevin and his staff reached out to me no less than 5 or 6 times during this class to hook me up with other people that, you know, and I'm like, I can't get to that. I've got my homework, you know. I mean, it was, you know, and you identify your weaknesses really quick in the cohort, which is great because that's what takes you to the next level. And because you're all doing the same exercises, you share information and you form that bond in that community. And it's amazing what your classmates know. And just like tonight, you know, you had 3 people raise their hand. Well, you know, in your cohort, you have people that you're going to connect to that can connect you to other people that can really help. And, you know, in my case, I learned that I didn't want to be a builder. But it did take me to another stage, and it helped me get through that. It helped me shorten that battle scar. So, yeah, I've had to do some other things since
Austin, and important, well, and around the United States, but starting here, so that's a great thing. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and yeah, it's an honor to be a part of the process with you. And also, you know, that's why we push.
Are you going to talk about Venture Start?
Yeah, the next slide or two.
First off, I had to start. I mean, all I had was an idea, and I was like, "Shit, I'm already insane. I might as well just do it." So that's kind of how it happened. I came to something like this, and next thing I knew, I was in this cohort with my sleeves rolled up and working directly with Kevin and the mentor network that he hooks you up with, and it's great. Like he said, there's no ring kissing or anything like that. In fact, they're very gracious, they're very patient. The whole mentorship program's great. So you've got good people that you bring in too.
Well, let me go back to it. I'll just keep the continuity. Free offer, come to the next campfire. We do campfires. We're doing them about once a month. We've been doing them with both Impact Hub Austin North, this facility. We've been doing Impact Hub South, which is off of Monroe. And we have a partnership with Concordia University as well that we're doing about there as well. The next one is February 6th at this location at 6:30 p.m. Total different program, so it's not going to be this rehashed. It's a total different thing. I fully commit to you that it's going to be a different kind of interaction than what we did tonight. And part of it is you'll actively not just, you know, create a network, but then exercise it and create a community of that. In fact, if you look at our website, you'll see, like as an example, the founder CEO of Aceable, you know, has this massive quote where he came into just a campfire and got exactly what he needed. Then he found me one time at a place called Mulberry's. I was having a glass of wine. You know, he just stopped me and said, "Hey, you see that group of 8 people? I think they're now 40 people. But you see that group of 8 people? Thank you for what you said during the campfire." I didn't even remember the conversation. You know, it ended up being this sort of thing. So this is a really valuable program. It is free. It's open to all. You do not have to be an entrepreneur to be at this. Sometimes we have job seekers. Sometimes we have entrepreneurs. Sometimes we have, you know, it's like it can be a little bit of a cheerleading thing as well, which is good if you're an entrepreneur that's just got kind of hit by whatever's happening. Whether you're here or here, we'll meet you at that, and the community is there to support you. The second program that I was just mentioning is called Venture Start. It's a 1-day entrepreneur boot camp. We do it online and in person. Talk to Maria. In order to get this in before Venture Forth, if you wanted to do the 1-2 punch on Venture Start and Venture Forth, you have to take the online one. We just don't have enough time to do the online, to do the in-person one and the coaching and the other stuff. But I promise if you take the online one, the coaching process for Venture Forth, if you're thinking about both, will be really valuable. This costs $250. Right now, like there's a sales and marketing class that we're offering only to Venture Forth alumni. And the reason is that, it's like we want to have a common language before you step into this other stuff. Because then, especially, it just makes it simpler to if the instructor is not starting at ground zero, he or she gets to start at a higher level. And then, with Venture Forth alumni, I didn't know that both these guys were going to be involved in tonight at all, like Ken said. There's a lot of reasons.
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Upon graduation of this program, you do give a pitch to investors, to the investor community. It's not like it's not as formal as what it sounds like, but it's a nice, comfortable way to do it. And if you do the cohort and you do the work, you're in the network. And not only will you be getting information, Kevin will contact you or somebody will contact you and say, hey, I need you to hook up with such and such because they're doing such and such, and you have an offer there, right? You have a service you can offer. So you're not only getting help, you're also helping others too, and that feels kind of good when you're in kindergarten like me.
Well, one of the other things too is once we actually know you, as an example, the government of Austria has a program that has a bunch of funding that comes along with it. Now you have to go live in Vienna, which is not a bad thing, but there might be a reason that you would want to take advantage of that. We don't publish those type of things to just generically everyone. It's like in Chile, if I introduce him to him and he screws up, it's not his fault. It's my fault. And one of the reasons that we're able to exercise this stuff around the world is people know this is how we work, not just the introduction. It's like it's something I learned in Chile. It's not in the American mindset like it is in the Chilean's mindset. It's like Italian style. If you know what that stereotype might imply. And there's a beautiful thing about that, and part of the reason that I think we have a good trust network around the world. And so, as an example, there's a number of programs that once a guy like Ken goes through, we'll actually give you access to. Another example is Amazon Web Services. So most of the seed accelerators actually have access to Amazon Web Services. Our agreement with Amazon is you've got to be at a certain level before we give you access to that. And I have to make sure that I validate, like it's my word, that you're at the right level before we get you access to $5,000 worth of free services at Amazon. We have to validate that you're at the right place, the right time before we do that. It's the same thing that I'm giving my example here about that. And so there's a certain thing that actually opens up, and many times it happens way after you graduate from the program. Last question or two? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the 8-week, what are the sessions? How much time during those?
The sessions, so if it was left to me, they'd probably run 4 or 5 hours. Because I absolutely love this. Maria is really good about keeping them on like 3 hours or less. Now, on a weekly basis, you'll have around a few hours of homework, but all the homework, I don't believe in this fetch a rock kind of homework. Fetch a rock kind of homework is like if you're going to go. I know we have a bunch of people who have MBAs in here, so I don't have an MBA. I'm going to just use this as a metaphor. Nothing against MBAs. In an MBA, you work on this whole corpus of stuff, but you only apply this much. Entrepreneurs don't have enough time to do that. So we want you to focus on just the work that's going to help drive the venture forward. That's our measure. There's nothing wrong with getting a full MBA. It's just a lot of times entrepreneurs need to move quicker. So expect around a 3-hour class time.
What time?
6 to 9, roughly the same period of time. We're going to be doing it on Tuesday nights. Expect that's what the core thing will be. On top of that, you could have 2 or 3 more mentor meetings per week, based on what you want. On top of that, you can actually have There's other events that we'll invite you to as well. The core requirement, just to get it down to the basics, is the work that comes out of the prepping for the business pieces that you need. Like your investor pitch is one thing, your financials is another thing. Now we support you building that out, but you got to do the work to do that. But it's the sort of stuff that you need to have in your business anyway. So 3 hours of core classes per week, but a lot more stuff on top of that. Do I have any last minute questions? What we'll do is we'll do this. I'll go to the last slide and we'll go ahead and close. And then if you have other questions, go ahead and ask us directly. If you have Maria and Tanya back over here, I'll be obviously here to answer more questions as well. It's an honor to get to work with entrepreneurs. Hopefully you got a sense of what we're up to and what we're here for and how we're here to support you. Part of what I say is, I alluded to this photo earlier about how we take, existential risk with each other. Don't worry, there's no trust falls or something like that in the class. It's all about driving ventures forward because they're taking on, important issues in the world. There's an African proverb that I absolutely love because it tells the fundamental essence of what we're here to achieve together as we build businesses that change the world together. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, let's go far together. That's the whole reason that we're here to work with you, and it's been an honor to work with you tonight. Good luck on your ventures. Join us in one of these programs. We hope to see you soon. So thank you for tonight.